Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Almost Sideways Movie Podcast. My name is Adam, and we are joined by Zach Saltz here, and we have a very special guest on the podcast. We are big fans of the latest film from Carson Lund, and that is the film called Eephus. And, of course, we got another big special guest, and that is Russell J. Gannon, who plays Bill Belinda from the movie. So, Russell, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Again, really a fun, entertaining film that we really do enjoy. I guess we'll kick off the first question. How did this come across your desk? How did you get this part, and what was the process of becoming
Sure.
on the baseball team?
So, I mean, the simple answer is I found it on Backstage. There was a posting for a character to play in a baseball movie. This was almost 3 years ago. May of 2022 is when I saw the ad. I auditioned via Zoom. The seventh inning stretch scene where my daughter Julie is singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and then I was cast. I was one of the last characters brought in. They had started to look at actors in 2021, and then put the project on hold for a little while to build up funding. But meanwhile, those guys practiced every couple of months. They get on the field, they practice. So by the time I got there, it had been a number of years since I had played. So I took advantage of the 2 weekends we had of just getting back to fundamentals. And yeah, so I was cast as Bill Belinda. And it sort of fit my personality. If you in the movie, you see a lot of the characters have distinct personalities, but they're all slightly based on real life, like their real life character. So if you see the character of me as this nice guy that, you know, his family's there supporting him, that's me. My family was there watching the filming when my real family. Yeah.
Oh wow.
On a couple of the days, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, we loved the movie, Russ, and we're big baseball fans and movie fans, and I think also it's fair to say we love independent movies, especially indie movies that maybe don't get the same sort of recognition, but make up for it in just how wonderful they are. Did you get a sense of just kind of like I guess one of my reactions to movies, it felt so real and so lived in. Was that sense in the screenplay, or was that a lot of it improvised or cultivated on set? I'm wondering kind of what the dynamic was there.
So there's not as much as improv as you would think. We had moments, but a lot of that was scripted, and it feels natural because Nate and Mike and Carson wrote a fantastic script that really it defined these characters as who they were. Where you find the improv are the throwaway lines, that the way that that Joe mixed the sound, and Carson as well, where there's bits of audio all around you in the theater. Some of that's the improv stuff, you know. Do you like pizza on ham? You mean ham on pizza? Can't believe that guy's wife's name is Linda Belinda.
Yeah,
these are all like those were the funny stuff, but the character stuff themselves was really well written. There were a couple of moments where we could improv, but we didn't get the sense that it was going to be this film. At least for me, I didn't get the sense that it was going to be the film that it was.
Okay, nice. But you said it had been a couple of years since you had last suited up and actually played some baseball or whatever. Other than did you do anything on your own to prepare for those the baseball moments, and other than the 2 weeks of practice you got with the guys?
So, I mean, I love baseball. You know, I'm in Boston.
Yeah.
You know, I bleed Sox. You know, and it changed a little bit when we won after 86 years, but I'll tell you, the heartache of 75, 86, obviously 2003 was crushing. a lot of us are, either Sox fans. A lot of the guys on the Adler's Paint side are from New York. They're Mets fans. I don't think we had any Yankees fans on there, but, so, for me, it was just kind of getting the old glove out and getting back to it. I probably hadn't played since 1990. I did radio here in Boston for a number of years, and I was part of a softball league of radio stations. And that was probably the last time I played. So just getting out and getting the feel again of what it was like to just hit a bat, like just swing a bat. And, and of course I'm so critical of watching myself on screen going, oh, why did I throw it like that? Like what does that sidearm come from? And things like that. And what it did is during the filming, it started me thinking about when I used to play Little League. I brought in my baseball card collection to show Bill Lee because I had him sign his card from like 77. And then he's going through the book and he's like, oh man, I can tell you a story about any one of these guys in here. Calls his wife over. He's like, look at this. This is my old roommate. What was a AAA and all this stuff. And so you get back into that feeling of just being around these guys. We shot, for well over, 26 days, I think. 26 days.
Wow.
We shot.
Real quick shoot.
And so you get into that baseball frame of mind. Like as soon as we got to set, we were throwing the ball. We'd find somebody to play catch with, and just you see a ball, you grab it, you get it on the field, and you just start stretching and do it, and that helped. Even though the guys in the movie are hobbling, a lot of that happened during filming. We got hurt, so
that's funny.
How much of the film was shot in order? Since it all takes place in one afternoon, I mean, it's amazing to think it was shot over 26 days and the continuity of that.
Right. So Carson and Tango, the cinematographer, they spent a lot of time watching where the sun was hitting the field and really studying how can we film this in a way where it looks like the day is passing. And so they planned out a pretty tight schedule as far as, okay, we're doing this inning on this day at this time. So we didn't shoot in order. But we definitely took advantage of where the sun was at a given time. And if it got cloudy, they'd look down and go, where can we shoot? Maybe we're shooting that late afternoon, early evening shot here. So they'll call us out. A lot of us were in the clubhouse working. We all had our laptops and then you'd hear Mike on the loudspeaker go, all right, River Dogs on the field now, and run down. It's like, I didn't know I was filming today. I thought I was just background, and we'd run down. It's like, no, we're switching things around. Keith's got to leave, so we're just shooting this, or Wayne just came to set, so we're going to shoot that scene today and things like that. So, but yeah, they did a great job of finding the light when we needed it.
Yeah, that's what one of my questions too was like. That it must have been like kind of a complicated shoot with all the time of day changes as well. So that's kind of really awesome that you're able to like be as flexible as you can and be in those situations too. I guess I want to bounce off something like what you were saying about your old baseball collection and Bill Lee sharing stories about his playing days and stuff. Who was like the biggest guy on set? Maybe one of the players that was kind of like the guy that like the jokester, the guy who was always like maybe playing pranks, or was there a specific guy that was just like yeah, you're the goofball of the group or the leader or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I was Dave Pridemore, who plays Troy, the drunk pitcher for the River Dogs. I've known Dave almost 20 years now, and the very first time I met him was on the set of The Game Plan with The Rock. Back in 2006, we shot at Gillette Stadium here in Boston. And I said, well, who is that clown? He was the guy that was trying to make everybody laugh. And I've probably done, 4 or 5 films with him, a couple of plays. And he is that guy that just is always talking, always ragging on someone, always coming over. Like there were days when he had no lines and he would say a line. I'm like, Dave, you have no lines today. Don't try to inject a line and he would just come over Oh, Hop at Aces. I love that place. That's my favorite bar. That's not in the script, he just throws it in there. The guys that admired Bill Lee were Pat, who played Logan. He's the pitcher that comes in at the very end. He's like, do me a favor and just videotape me playing catch with Bill Lee. I just want that. And but yeah, I guess Dave was our clown that we had on set. So and when Bill came to set, they were two sides of the same coin, right? Like, just Lee was out of control, and then Dave comes in and he's out of control, and the two of them were just like funny to be around.
Feeding off each other.
And Lee, he had that medical issue when he played for the Savannah Bananas. Right before filming, he had collapsed on the field. Actually had a heart attack, and they revived him on the field. And so we didn't know if he was going to make it to the film or not. He had been a couple of months. And so he gets on the mound, he gets there, and he says, all right, this is the first pitch I've thrown since I died. And then he throws. I mean, for the guy, the age that he is, he could throw it. He could throw it still. And, it was great watching him pitch. So it was so cool.
That's cool. That's definitely an experience.
I really love the movie, and it's great to hear your enthusiasm for it. I don't know. I'd like to think it was tangible and it came off. It was presented really well on the screen. One of the things I loved about the movie is that it was a baseball movie, but it was also a movie kind of about life and about male relationships and about maybe suburbia a little bit and kind of modern life. Do you feel like this is a movie that is a baseball movie, or is it more than, like, I guess it's sort of a glib question, but is it a movie about something else? Is baseball like a stand-in or like a metaphor for something?
I think if you looked at it, you do not have to be a baseball fan to love this movie. And I think when I say that, it's more than baseball. Baseball is where we are. That's our setting. Carson likes to describe this movie as sort of the loss of the third space. We go to work, we go home, but there was a time when we all went to this third space, and we've lost that. We don't necessarily do those things anymore. Like every Wednesday I would play that softball game religiously. The 3 years that I was working for this radio station, every Wednesday, during the weather, and we were like, we got to play, and we just look forward to that. And over passage of time, whether it's that we're too busy or we've got something else that's taking our attention away, we lose that. So this film really taps into the idea of time passing us by. And I think when I first saw this, so we didn't see it for a long time. We filmed this movie. We thought we were making kind of a goofy comedy, maybe not the like Caddyshack per se, the golf genre or something, or Major League or something. When we saw the movie, it was about a year ago, because it had been in post like 18 months or something like that, maybe a little longer. And then we got invited to see it. And framing the film around Franny, Cliff Blake, who plays Franny in the film, blew us away. We had no idea that he was going to be that emotional heart of the film. And just the fact that he comes out of the woods at the beginning, and like the day just goes by, and that feeling of there's something that we're losing here, and nobody wants to hang on. Nobody wants to let go of it. We want to hang on to that. And so I think the fact that it's played in so many places that aren't necessarily baseball places. France is where we premiered it at Directors Fortnight at the Cannes Film Festival. It played in Poland, Jakarta, Sydney, Shanghai. Like, okay. And it was resonating. I mean, France loved it, absolutely loved it. And, because it's more than baseball. It really is. And even the camaraderie, the insults, they're not like mean, they're just, it's just the way, they just throw them out there. Like, it's not derogatory. It's not misogynistic. It's just guys being guys.
Yeah, it's like a vernacular.
Yeah.
Right,
And there's not a meanness to it. It's guys that are just like, hey, get to the plate, I don't know if I can swear on here, but so
it's all good.
But yeah, it just comes out, like, and they just move on. Like the scene where they're talking to Keith about he's losing a little zip on the fastball, and Ethan comes walking over and he's like, hey, dipshit, he's good. Okay, just saying. And he goes right back to shortstop. It's like, okay, like nobody takes it really seriously. What we're upset about is the fact that the field is that Graham, Stevens' character, is demolishing the field. That's what we're upset about. Yeah. But everything else is great. And so I think the baseball is secondary. I think you latch onto the characters, and it's a true ensemble. I mean, there's no lead, and everybody has little moments throughout the film, and which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, I think that as a person who played the competitive softball for many years, and I resonate to a lot what you were saying. Like, you kind of lose over the course of time. You kind of lose because you get too busy, but it's always like it just comes back to you, kind of natural too, and you kind of lose them. But there is that camaraderie and that friendship and like the brotherhood of your team as well. So, like one of my favorite moments that actually stood out. That's actually revolving your characters when your last at bat in front of your kids. Like, I have 2 kids myself, and like one of them has never seen me play because she's way too young. But one of them was like, it was like 5 years ago since I last played, and like I remember like my last at bat. Like you remember those moments, and that was as a father. That was like really like that's like one of my favorite scenes in that film.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was just really good. It's like, man. That's just, it's sad for me, but it's like they might think it's funny because I struck out or whatever the case is. So, were you able to, like, you already kind of answered this. You did put parts of your personality into your character. What specifically were you doing when you were developing your character of Bill? Here?
Yeah, so as a father of 2 as well, and my kids are grown, but I remember those moments when my kids were growing up where you start to sense that this is the last time we're going to do this activity. This is the last time that you're going to go to Disney and see the princesses and really get blown away by that. And so you start to feel just as myself, as those characters. And I'll try not to well up as I'm telling this story. I remember my daughter, Siobhan, she was a huge Jasmine fan of Aladdin. And we took her to Disney to have breakfast with the princesses. And you were never guaranteed which princesses were going to be there. They were going to pick 5. So it could have been anyone. And we're watching, and she's got her back to the door, and 4 princesses come in. No Jasmine. Number 5, it's Jasmine. And I'm like, oh, man. And she sees my daughter dressed as Jasmine and walks right up behind her. And I'm like, I'm dead. I'm gone. This is. And so that'll never happen again with my daughter. Maybe with grandkids or something like that. So those moments, are, they color Bill Belinda, who knows that this is, and he tries so hard. He gets hit by a pitch. He walks. He strikes out. He makes. It's just he tries. He really, and he's on base 3 times. Or 2 out of the 4 times. But it's not what he wants. He wants it, and the kids are bored. You see them in the film; they're absolutely bored. And I know that my kids, when they used to come to see me do stuff, they would just be bored. And so he tried to be like, oh no, this is it. So I would think of those moments, and Yeah, I had a gentleman come up to me. I was doing a Q&A here in Boston at a screening, and he was a dad of 2 young kids.
Oh.
He couldn't talk. He had tears streaming down his eyes at the end of the film. He came up, he shook my hand, and he's like, "Thank you," and he walked out of the theater. And I'm like, that's amazing that our film is able to touch people that way.
That's yeah, that, like I said, like that, everything you were saying is like, yeah, that's, you remember those things, especially for seeing kids. You're like, yeah, this might be my last time interacting and whatever we're doing. Like, yeah, it's a very like relatable thing, especially when you're actually experiencing that too. So
Yeah.
Pretty special for sure.
Yeah, and I loved in the film how a lot of times in baseball movies, it's depicted as just the major leagues, or maybe a movie about the minor leagues, or maybe, you know, developing younger talent. We don't get a lot of movies about older, more recreational baseball players, not even at a single A level, but just at the local stadium. And I love where the movie's focused on that. And I was just telling Adam before the podcast, I think my favorite scene in the movie is when your fictional daughter sings the national anthem. That's a wonderful moment in that movie, and I love how everybody actually really. I mean, I loved all the guys in the movie, but your fictional family was hilarious. Every time they cut to those characters, and it said, I think, a lot about maybe what younger people think about baseball too. But I guess maybe say, did you develop a relation? You don't have a lot of screen time necessarily with them per se, but were they a part of how you developed your character, I guess?
Yeah, I seem to. I spend the most of the time with Annie, who played my daughter, and the scene that Take Me Out to the Ball Game scene was the scene that as I said earlier, I auditioned.
I'm sorry, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. It wasn't national anthem, was it?
No, that's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
I knew what you meant, though.
Yeah.
But it was a much longer scene. And I'm hoping when the Blu-ray comes out that my monologue that was cut.
Oh, damn.
But as Carson was telling me, he goes, it flowed so nicely to go from that moment where they're trying to figure out, do we keep playing? What are we doing here? To her singing was just perfect. It was perfect. There's a whole bit of me bringing everybody back out, like, oh, come on, you know, Jules, come out. We've been practicing this song, blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on and on. So the fact that it cuts right to her is great. I loved whenever I saw them on set, they were just, you know, it's like they were my kids. You know, you become very protective of your set family as well. You know, my wife, I'm like, who's making jokes about Linda? No, don't make jokes about Linda Belinda, you know? But yeah, it's as far as like chemistry, there's something interesting. Most of the guys lived together for almost the entire filming. They rented a cabin not far from the field. And since some were in New York and some were from Boston, I was a little closer to the field. So I would go home every night. And I think Steven, who played Graham, went home every night as well. So there were feelings of isolation from us that I think played into certainly Steven, as being the guy who's Graham destroying the field, was not as close. Those other guys lived together. They'd cook every night. They'd come to set the next day and they're like, oh, it's such an amazing time last time. I'm like, what? Like, what did I miss? I got to go home. I got stuff to do. I can't do that. So they had all this great chemistry there. So my chemistry was with Graham and the family on set because we would go home every night and then come back. So, but I loved the fact that I had a family there. And like I said earlier as well, you know, there were a couple of days when my wife came down. She watched this film, the opening scene where I come in. I'm like, hey, am I late? you know, what's the score? And I must have done that scene 7 or 8 times because we wanted to make sure that it was all the camera moves and everything. And when I finished, my wife said, you did that the exact same way every single time. Like you did not vary from that. And I said, well, unless the director says I'm doing something wrong, you're going to get the same take over and over again. That's it. She's like, yeah, but it was the same every single time. I'm so impressed. Like, thank you. So it's fun having them there as well. So
yeah, it's kind of like the encourage that gives you like a little extra encouragement. Like, hey, I got it. I got the juices.
Right. Yeah. If you want it different every time, I will improv it to death and give you 11 different takes of Bill Belinda coming to the field. So.
Well, would you say your director was like a Stanley Kubrick, like 80 takes until you get it right, or more of like a Clint Eastwood, let's just kind of move on with it? Or
so what was amazing about Carson, and I only knew a couple of the guys prior. Like I knew Dave, who played Troy, and I knew Steven, who played Graham, and Garrett, played by Chris, who plays our catcher, had played my son in an earlier film. So those were the only guys I knew. So I didn't know Carson, but we went to Emerson. We all went to, a bunch of us went to Emerson College. I'm just a class of a million years ago, and these guys were like 10 years ago. But Carson, who loves baseball, always had a ball in his hand, always, like as he was doing it. And he loves John Ford films. And those beautiful takes, those long takes were, for him, it was making sure that everything was set up so that we wouldn't have to cut. If the ball is hit to me and I throw it to first, and that's out number 3, and that camera is moving and tracking us into the dugout. And then we're all taking our equipment and getting ready to go to bat. And the conversation is now starting to happen in the dugout. That's one continuous shot. And it all depends on that ball going to second base. That's where we would, like, if that ball wasn't hit where it needed to be, then it's cut, reset, let's do it. But I think once we'd do 2 or 3 takes and he'd get it and we'd move on. He's pretty chill. I will admittedly say that Dave and I drove him crazy with our, what might be a better shot. And he would just nod and go, I've directed before, so I'm good. And I think there were some Adler Paints guys that he had to reprimand. But he never, he didn't lose his temper. Even when we were on that last nerve, he was like, no, I got this. And then just seeing those beautiful shots, we're just like, that's the payoff right there. I mean, there are some shots. I've seen the film now 16 times. We don't always stay when we do the Q&As and we do the talk backs, but sometimes to me, it's like watching family up there. I've grown to love these guys. So it's like watching whole movies. So I'll stay and I'll watch it. And there are just scenes where the camera movement is so good. It's as impressive as anything. And I'm like, I'm never sick of watching this camera move here. So
was it shot on film or was it digital?
I should know that. I think it was digital.
Okay.
Digital,
yeah. But I agree. I mean, some of those shots, like the sunset and just, really beautiful cinematography.
Yeah, we got lucky with the fall colors. I mean, that's New England.
Yeah.
The shots when it was just the tree against that blue sky and those golden yellow leaves. That was just like, it just captures everything about where we were. And as you said earlier, I mean, the film takes its time. And that's, I know we've got one bad review on IMDb where the guy's like 98 minutes. That's more like 98 hours. I sat there to watch this. I'm like, oh, come on, man. This is, it's a slow film, but it's not, I don't think it's a boring film. I think it takes its time and it doesn't rush through things. There's a scene that I love that shows you how this film differs from other films. And it's when Bobby goes to first base. So he's Brendan Burt. He's sort of the goofy first baseman for the Adler's Paints. And he's trying to get Glenn to talk about the fireworks. And Glenn is focused on the at bat. And he keeps trying to go, you got some some TNT, some Sky Dynamite. You got this stuff, and Glenn's not answering him. Well, it could have been a kind of thing where a director goes, you know what, cut. Let's clean this up. Let's make this tighter so that. And then Glenn finally is like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it takes a while to get to that conversation. Well, that's how conversations work sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're not paying attention to the guy that's talking to you, and then you finally do. Those are the moments I think really resonate with people. Like, that's real life. That's real life here. So
it's definitely we've said this a lot, a really lived in film. You guys have really did a great job developing these characters. And I would almost imagine that you would kind of picture what you would do after the game. So I would be amiss saying your daughter saved you a baked potato. What are you bringing home for dessert? That's the question I was wondering.
Yeah, I think I just skipped dessert. I think I'll tell him I stopped and got something, but you know, I think at that point we were tired and I'm just going home. I'll have the potato.
Well, I'm giving you an IOU for later for the dessert. Yeah,
that's right. That the old guy is Mike Basta's grandfather, so one of the writers and the AD, and he did such an amazing job. He's sitting there like almost a short day at the park. You know, and all that stuff, you know, we don't eat pizza. We eat hot dogs. Yeah. Nobody has a pizza. So, and the pizza guy is Joe Castiglione. Now you're on the West Coast, so it may not resonate, but it's a great Easter egg for people who know. But since 1983, he was the voice of the Red Sox. And So I had worked for the Red Sox network in the late 80s. That's where I was playing in this field, this softball league. And I reached out to him. I said, look, it's been a number of years, but we'd love to get you in the film. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't often get to play other things but an announcer. So the fact that we had him as the pizza vendor is great. And that voice is so familiar to everyone in New England. He's the voice of the Red Sox for 40 years. So
wow, that's pretty fascinating. That's a good get right there for sure. Yeah, because he's definitely a character that pops up and like he has this specific style of his voice. Now makes us want to go watch some old Red Sox games to listen to the voice.
That's right. Wow. Watch the clinching out with the 2004 World Series. And Bostonians have waited 86 years, you know, that sort of thing. So it was great. It was fun seeing him on set. We had him for a day, and he only needed a few hours to get those scenes down. But yeah. That whole sequence with one of my favorites in the film is where they're talking about the triangular manholes. He's talking about pizza at ball games and why do they need a school? And then the pizza vendor talking about driving around and the fact that it just keeps going. And there's a game in the background. You can actually see I make a play. Like it's a ball that I grab and I throw to first, but nobody's paying attention to the game. It's these little moments, the slices of life that are going on that are just so wonderfully captured in this. So.
That's awesome. Really awesome. You have anything, Zach?
I was just gonna say, as a Boston, I don't live in Boston. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, but I'm a Boston. I mean, I loved the 04 Red Sox and 07 and 13 and 18, but the years in between as well. So I'm curious, what is your background in the Boston radio scene? I have to ask because I'm also a fan of Boston radio too. 98.5 The Sports Hub. I'm all about that in Nesson, and I love that.
Oh, okay.
Love that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I was not sure what I wanted to do in life, but I knew I loved music, and I was good in math, so I started my college career as an accounting major, and then I failed accounting. My first semester, and I said I should probably do something else. And I heard an ad on the radio to answer phones at WBCN, which was the Rock of Boston, the best station in the early 80s in Boston. It was the rock station. And so I volunteered to answer phones and take requests. And that got me into I want to do this. I want to be on the air. And of course, I had a Boston accent, and they're not going to put me on the air with a Boston accent. Boston weather and sports, and Boston Garden, and go see the Sox, and all of that stuff. And nobody's going to put you on the air if you got a voice like that. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to learn to get rid of the accent. So I wound up at Emerson College and studying radio, and wound up doing radio out of college. I was working for the Red Sox network. I was a traffic reporter for a while. And then I wound up, the last station I was at was 92.5 The River, Boston's independent radio, WXRV in Boston. And I was there for a few years, right up until 2006. And the industry had changed from when I was in it in 1983 to 2006. I wasn't playing CDs anymore. I was clicking and dragging a file. I wasn't even picking my own music. It was just, and there was only so many times I could hear What I Like About You by the Romantics before I just wanted to go Johnny Fever on it and just throw it across the room. KRP reference there. And so I said, you know what, I got to do something else. I can't do this anymore. I'm just bored. And that's where I saw an ad to be an extra in the game plan and with The Rock. And I started doing that. But the only thing I had, I couldn't act. And the only thing I had was my voice. So I started doing voiceover work. So I lucked out and did some episodes of Frontline on PBS. And then loved it so much that branched into trying to do commercial work. And then animated voice work, which I do a little bit now as well. So anyone who's watching that, has an animated film that needs a voice, let me know.
There we go.
But I love Boston radio. I was probably at a half dozen stations here in Boston, and I loved it. I was fortunate to be in some of the best formats at the best time. So BCN in the early 80s was the best rock station. WFNX in the mid 80s was the alternative station. So when bands like The Cure and The Alarm and Depeche Mode and Susie and the Banshees and all these bands were, still considered alternative, I was in alternative. I was in talk radio in the late 80s and early 90s when you could still have left and right on the same station and they got along. And then by the time the AAA format came along, where nobody knew what to do with bands like Counting Crows and even 10,000 Maniacs and things like that, then the AAA format formed, and that's the format that I worked in. And so I still have music, still have my MP3 player, and I got 1,500 songs on there that I rotate out every couple of months with new stuff. But yeah, still music driven. But I love acting. I absolutely fell in love with doing this. So.
That's awesome. When you transition to acting, when did you get your SAG card, or how did that whole process go into?
Yeah, so I was on my second film. It was Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, and I was given a voucher, a Taft-Hartley waiver that made me union for the day. And I was so clueless. I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. I know there's the Screen Actors Guild. There's AFTRA, which I had never joined because all of the stations that I worked at, I didn't need to be AFTRA. That's the Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And then, so I had a waiver. And then someone said, well, if you get 3 of those, you can join the union. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I got one on The Proposal with Ryan Reynolds and
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock and Betty White as well was in that. And we filmed that here north of the city. So I had 2. I'm like, great, I just need 1 more. I said, how do you get them? I feel like I'm just randomly given them. And someone said, you can ask. So I was on The Invention of Lying with Ricky Gervais. And I said, do you have any waivers today? She's like, how many do you have? I said, 2. She goes, if I find out you have more than 2, I'm coming after you. I'm like, why would I have more than 2 and ask for 1? She goes, oh, because people collect them. They don't want to join the union, but they want to get paid as a union member that day. So they just collect them. And they never join the union. I'm like, but I want to join the union. So I joined in 2008. And then I joined AFTRA. I was doing stand-in work on Brotherhood on Showtime, and I wound up having to join AFTRA, so I joined at that. And then I was curious to know, when we were facing merger, what that meant. And so I ran for the New England SAG board, and I got on the SAG board in 2011.
Whoa, that's pretty
And
cool.
so, and then in 2012 we merged, and I got to see all the behind the scenes, like, what does that mean? What does that entail? And so I stayed on the board for 4 terms, and then I was part of the Public Television Negotiating Committee, and now I'm the I'm the vice chair of the National Background Committee. I'm on the National Voiceover Committee, and still a member of one of the negotiating committees for public television contracts. So I stayed pretty active in the union. I'm fascinated by the inner workings of the business of acting, and just and how people who are how they can use union actors. You know, they think that if we hire a union actor, that's a lot of money. It's going to be, I have to deal with the union. It's just going to be all this red tape. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to shoot non-union. And it's like, no, it's actually pretty easy. And it doesn't add a lot to your costs. And we can negotiate depending on the contract. And so I do a lot of outreach to colleges. I go in and I talk about what it means to use union actors in student films, and I work with student directors a lot. I love working with them. I love the energy, and you know, you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once were 2 students at Emerson, and they made that film. La La Land was a student at Harvard, and that was his thesis film, and he turned it into that. So I'll work with as many student directors. I mean, Carson Lund was a student director at Emerson, and we're always looking for the next big thing. So if I can work on your film in freshman year, and then you remember me for your first project in LA, I'm there. I'm coming out. So
That's awesome.
And it's fun too to be able to share what I've learned in almost 20 years with student filmmakers as well. And it's such a collaborative, filmmaking's a collaborative effort. You know, we're all there to make the project better. So regardless of whether you're union or non-union, you know, you bring a skill to the table. And if you're the right guy for the or woman for the role, then it's yours. So.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. What is a project that you've like appeared on that, or like that's one of my really great project that you were a part of? Like you talked about a couple some bigger movies. Maybe there's a smaller film out there. They're like, yeah, you know what, this hasn't been seen too much. What's another project that, you know, we should be
I got pretty fortunate to do a great scene with Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction, which then wound up on the cutting room floor. Unfortunately, but working with Cord Jefferson, who I just love from his work with on The Good Place, which is, to me, just it's such a great show, and I'm a fan of Michael Schur and Cord Jefferson, everybody involved with that. So being on that, I was once an off-screen reader for Liam Neeson in the film The Honest Thief, which was a blast to do. I'm not in it, and you don't hear me, but he needed somebody to talk to, so that he could answer truthfully on his phone. And we spent an hour doing this scene, and we do bits of it. We break it up, and he was great. Gave me a big hug at the end. We talked about Krull. I said, I got to ask you about Krull. And he's like, oh, Christ, that was my first movie. I'm like, I know. And Robbie Coltrane was in it too. It's this weird sci-fi fantasy movie from the early 80s. And it's like Star Wars meets Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's a very funny movie. For me, after COVID, I wound up as a stand-in on Dexter New Blood. Yeah. And I had the privilege of being Clancy Brown's stand-in for 5 months. And at the time I was just starting out in animated work, and he's the voice of Mr. Krabs. And he was an amazing guy to just sit and talk about anything. Huge baseball fan as well. Just funny guy. I was in Free Guy, which I enjoyed immensely. So it's funny. I love projects. I had a project last year that I shot in New York called Sideways for Attention. It was going to be my first time with an intimacy coordinator. So that's not a lot of times for guys my age to be doing that. But that was interesting. And then I did a film here in Boston that's on YouTube called Lonely Nights in Chinatown, which was a lot of fun. I got to play a South Boston trash collector. So I got to bring the Boston accent out a little bit. Southie's a little hotter. You got to get that edge to it a little bit. Like, look at that street, Jake. That's fucking clean, man. That's fucking clean. That sort of stuff. So I loved that. It was a young filmmaker, Ryan Storm, who shot it in guerrilla style. I really enjoyed working on it. So, but each film I've worked on, I was background for a long time. Just watching and learning the craft, and I was taking acting classes, and then just watching everything. And there were always little things that I could take away from any film that it's like, that was really cool. Like, I got to talk to Maya Rudolph on the set of Grown Ups. Okay, I'll remember that. That was pretty cool. Or the crafty food on The Proposal was the best I've ever had. It was this seafood. It was delicious. These things I remember. I may not always remember my lines, but I remember. Oh yeah, I remember
those experiences.
Exactly.
That's pretty awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Any final questions you have, Zach? Because I have one more, and then we'll let Russ.
No, I just it's been great talking to you. When you were talking about, I guess we can call it now, older radio, I thought, could there be an Eephus of radio in the 80s and 90s? I mean, could you have an Eephus of this older way of life? I mean, I don't mean to say that Eephus is a formula or something like that, but it left me thinking about all the ways that we've changed, ostensibly for the better, but you also lose some things, and you were talking about that too. So would you ever make that movie? I mean, you said that you have some directorial instincts. Would you ever direct or write something like that?
I've never really thought about it, but there are so many characters in a radio station. I mean, obviously KRP was one that showed that, and there were news radio was another. There were times when I was at one of my stations, which I won't mention just because some of the people may still be alive, and they would just do things that you were like, what are you doing, man? We still had reel-to-reels, and you had to clean the heads. So you had these really long, essentially long Q-tips, and you dip it in the alcohol and you clean the heads. And I remember walking in one day, and one of the hosts has one sticking out of his ear. He's like on the phone talking to someone, and he's got this giant Q-tip that he's cleaning his ear with. And I'm like, we need that for the heads. What are you doing, man? Go get a Q-tip. Oh, way out here doing that. You just see people that come into the station, and you're like, they're like a character. So yeah, there absolutely is. You could have a station that's changing format, and that's the end of the station, and it's or they're all being downsized. Yeah, there's definitely a story there. Would I write it? I don't know. I love to write, but I'm shiny object. Like, ooh, I want to do that. Ooh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. And then I've got a lot of unfinished projects.
Oh, man. Well, I'll leave you with one Easy question. We usually do like our big Mount Rushmore top 4. And this is going to be easy because we're talking about Eephus baseball movie. Who's on your Mount Rushmore for Boston Red Sox players?
Gotta put Big Papi. Right off the bat, there's no one bigger. Pedro, gotta go with that. Ted Williams is Mr. Baseball for Boston, and I was a Yaz fan as a kid, so Carl Yastrzemski has got to be up there as well. And I'm leaving off Jim Rice and Fred Lynn and Rico Petrocelli and Mo Vaughn and these guys. Nomar.
Dustin Pedroia, he was my favorite.
Pedroia's, Petey was amazing. He got hurt, and but it's Big Papi in 03 and 04. I mean, you could put Wakefield on there. You could put Veritek, Carlton Fisk. But I'll go with Ted Williams, Yaz, Pedro, and Big Papi. But Big Papi in that 04 series against the Yankees, I will watch that over and over until the day I die. That comes on Netflix, will run it, or ESPN, anyone that is showing that series where we came back from 3 against the Yankees. I will plop myself down and watch it, and I will get goosebumps every single time. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. I met Johnny Damon when his Idiots book came out, right after that series, and we were hanging out, and I said, when did you're in Yankee Stadium, we're up, whatever it was, 10-3, 12-3, something, game 7, you've come all the way back, it's the 9th inning, we know from the 86 Sox what can happen, we know what happened in 03, when did you know? And he's like, nope, we didn't think about it, we did not even entertain that thought until that 3rd out in the 9th inning. We couldn't allow ourselves to think, oh man, we got this. It's the 7th inning. We're up by 8, 9. Well, we got nope. And he looked at me like in all seriousness, like we absolutely didn't think we had it until it was over. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's amazing. So I will say that the steal of second in that game 4
by Dave Roberts, right?
That's just, I've got a framed autograph picture of it on my wall, because that's it. That's the play. He doesn't steal that base, nothing else happens. And the fact that he stole it by like this, like it was that close, it was like the cherry on the sundae. It was just everything about that, after what happened in 03, which was so heartbreaking. We were at Fenway when we were up 5-2 or 5-3. We went to there just so that we could stand with other Sox fans. We had gone to see Lewis Black, and he kept coming out and going, all right, the Sox are up this, whatever. And I said, we got to go to Fenway. As soon as the show's over, let's just drive over. By the time we went to Fenway, it was tied at 5. And we're like, we're going home. And then watching Wakefield give up, it wasn't even his fault. It was just freaking, that's what makes 04 so wonderful. And I apologize to Yankees fans that are watching this. I know you had 27 championships. So don't be talking to me about 04. You had 03, Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many Yankee fans watch our pod, but if they do, they maybe should question their life choices. But I love Big Papi's home run in the 2013 ALCS, the grand slam against the Tigers. That was maybe the stakes weren't quite as high, but they would have been down, I think, 2-0 in that series, and he single-handedly saved them en route to an improbable World Series title. But that when the guy, the guard leaping down, and Torrey Hunter injuring himself, that was a great home run, great series.
Oh yeah,
a great team.
I mean, that swing was just made for Fenway. I mean, it was just, it was so incredible. In his final season, I took my son to see a Red Sox game, and he hit a home run. And I said, awesome. There you go, man. You know, getting to see Big Papi hit a home run in his final season at Fenway. So, awesome. Yeah, those are the things you remember. Absolutely. Yeah. You know.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well, we could probably continue to talk of all things baseball with you for hours. But we won't keep you too much longer. We really do appreciate the time and the awesome conversation, and we wish you all the best of luck. And this, again, if you haven't watched Eephus yet, you guys go check out this film. It is definitely worth every second of the time. Don't listen to that one viewer on IMDb. Just don't listen to that guy. Everything else is great.
Absolutely. Thank you. I found your review online. You were so enthusiastic about it. I'm glad we were able to connect. Right now the film is finishing up its limited run. It is available on Apple TV and Amazon as a pay-per-view. We are putting the Blu-ray out in July, we hope, with a lot of bonus material, deleted scenes, extended scenes, bloopers, behind-the-scene footage. We had an amazing time in New York last year for the New York Film Festival. We played a promotional baseball game in full uniform on the Lower East Side, which mirrored the movie purely coincidentally. And it was tied late in the game. The sun was going down, and we had an absolute blast. And that was the day before we premiered at Lincoln Center in front of 1,100 people. And it was incredible. So we hope to get it back in theaters. We will be doing a barnstorming tour, we hope, where the players come out in uniform and meet the fans. We've been talking to minor league teams about maybe doing something. There's a lot of language in the film, which is not great for Family Day. But hell, Eephus Day at any field, we'll do it. And so we're hoping, to continue growing the film. I think it's still in its early stages as people discover it and love it and talk about it and share it.
Yeah, I suspect it's a movie that's going to have a very long life ahead of it, as long as people check it out, because there's a timeless quality to it. And as you were saying earlier, it's more than just a baseball movie. It hits on a lot of issues in our society, in our world, but has just a lot of resonance and a lot of just great heart. So we loved the film. It was a great discovery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for making it. It was a wonderful experience to watch.
Yeah, we're happy to be part of it. We're so proud of the film. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again for everybody. And this is Adam, Todd, and Russ. Until next time, we'll see you later.